Hello again, I'm Brandon, and welcome to 3 Minute Intellectual. Have you ever gotten into an argument? Of course you have. We all have. Someone says take out the trash, someone else says make me, the virtue of someone's mother is called into question. We've seen it 100 times. But disagreements aren't always about household chores or who gets to hold the remote. Sometimes we engage in debates where each side should be able to lay out logical arguments and draw conclusions based on facts. How often do you see that happen? Yeah, me neither. Most of the time, even in these situations, logic ends up flying out the window and the virtue of someone's mother ends up being called into question, which is actually an example of a logical fallacy, and people commit them all the time. Today we're going to be talking about 4 of the most common logical fallacies that you probably encounter every day. Start the clock. We begin with ad hominem. This is a fancy Latin term that means to the person and occurs when someone attacks you or your character rather than the substance of your argument. This is probably the most common logical fallacy, and it's practiced by everyone from second graders to senators. This is the yeah, but you're ugly response. I may in fact be ugly, but that neither proves nor disproves that the moon landing was filmed at a secret soundstage on the Warner Brothers lot. Slippery slope. This logical fallacy occurs when a person claims that one event will inevitably lead to some future, likely negative event. If we allow A to happen, then Z will happen, and therefore we shouldn't allow A. If you allow same-sex couples to get married, then eventually you'll have to allow people to marry their goats, and where does it end? Maybe goats forced into unwanted marriages is a topic worth discussing. Maybe 2 consenting adult humans should be allowed to do whatever they want. Either way, the extreme hypothetical of goat matrimony has very little to do with the merits or the drawbacks of the argument at hand, and can't be presented as fact to disprove an argument. No true Scotsman. This logical fallacy occurs when a person makes a generalization, then, when a counterexample proves their generalization false, tries to defend their claim by changing the definition. This rather odd and specific name came from British philosopher Anthony Flew, who wrote about this logical fallacy in his book Thinking About Thinking. In the book, Flew gives an example of a Scotsman who sits down one morning to read the Glasgow Morning Herald and reads about the Brighton sex maniac. Brighton's a town in England. He puts down the paper in shock and states no Scotsman would ever do such a thing. The next day, when he sits down to read the paper, there's a story about an Aberdeen man, Aberdeen is in Scotland, whose brutal actions make the Brighton sex maniac seem downright gentlemanly. This example proves the Scotsman's generalization was wrong, but instead of admitting it, he says, no true Scotsman would ever do such a thing. You hear this kind of thing all the time about religious groups, like you may do that, but no real Christian would, or certain professions, like no decent lawyer would ever act that way, or sports affiliations, which really is just like religion, so you get it. Next is the straw man fallacy. This is when someone misrepresents or exaggerates your claim in order to make it easier to attack. You make claim A, they make an argument against the weaker but superficially similar claim X, as if an argument against X disproves A. For example, person A says people who are overweight should get in better shape for their health. Person B replies, so everyone should be anorexic? Because being anorexic is way more unhealthy than being overweight. Person A isn't advocating anorexia, but person B has set up that straw man version of the argument to make it easier to knock down. These are just a few of the logical fallacies people commit all the time, but enough to give you a leg up in your own logic game, or at the very least enough to smugly point them out when someone else commits them. If you're interested, follow some of the links down in the description to learn more about logical fallacies. Thank you all for watching the video. Please give us a like or a subscribe, and I hope you learned a little bit today. Now go learn a lot.